So today I want to talk about my experience as someone who's been like a motor enthusiast for like 20 years or so before starting to get into bikes. And I'm going to talk about a few points that we take from the car mentality that completely don't apply. And I want to talk about how, getting into motorcycles has completely expanded my way of thinking, and realizing how limited my way of thinking was coming from the car world. So this video will help you to become a better motorcyclist, especially if you're new, maybe if you haven't gotten into bikes yet, if you haven't started riding, or maybe if you're just a couple of years in. If you're a more experienced rider, you're already going to know a lot of the points that I'm talking about, because I think it's natural that you start to learn these things, and so it'll help. So these points will help you understand your bike better, or it'll help take away some misconceptions, maybe some ideas you took, limitations that you think a bike has, where it doesn't actually have the same limitation that a car would have. Also, I want to point out that making this video doesn't mean that I never drive cars. Cars are comfortable. They're easy to drive. They're easier to drive. You're protected from the rain, the cold, the hot. But it makes you realize that a car is just a kind of boring tool that just helps you get a job done, helps you get from A to B. So today I want to give you 5 points that we take from the car mentality, but don't actually apply in the motorcycle world. The first thing is performance. So people don't think about performance on a motorcycle in the same way that people do in a car. Motorcyclists don't care about performance, really. They don't care about how much power an engine has. The reason is, in the car world, the power or the size of the engine is pretty much directly related to the actual performance. For example, a 100 kilowatt car is going to accelerate 10 seconds, and a 200 kilowatt car is going to be very proportional. That's why motor enthusiasts are fixated on how much power a certain car has. The reason that doesn't apply to motorcycles is because, unlike cars where it's quite evenly scaled, there's a lot of cars that are slow, a lot of cars that are medium, a lot of cars that are fast, a lot of cars that are really fast. But with motorcycles, most of them start out as being fast, and maybe 90% of them are really fast. All of the bikes that exist are kind of skewed up to the top of the theoretical limit of performance, and I think that theoretical limit is about 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Secondly, motorcyclists don't care about engine power because bikes are a lot more difficult to control the power. You got to worry about keeping the front wheel down. Losing traction can be catastrophic, unlike in a car. It takes a lot more skill to extract the full performance out of a lot of motorcycles. That's why motorcyclists don't care. They don't really look if a bike has got 70 kilowatts or 80 or 100. The second point that's different is engine size. So with cars, engine size is related to power. With a motorcycle, that's not the case. You can have a 400cc bike which can obliterate another bike which has got twice the engine size. All of car engines are pretty much the same in terms of their geometry, but for bike, engine geometry can be very different. That's why you can have a 35 kilowatt bike which is 650cc, but a 100 kilowatt track weapon which is less, which is 600cc. The third point is how you handle the clutch. So in a car, you try to minimize the riding the clutch, or the friction point of the clutch. and that is to make it last longer. But in the bike world, most bikes use a multi-plate, like an 8 or 9 plate clutch, which is wet and which is swimming in oil. So the amount of surface friction area compared to the load is much higher on a motorcycle proportional to in a car. So you can be riding the clutch all day long on a motorcycle and it won't make a difference. And the other thing is, even if your clutch does wear out or burn out, it's a lot easier to change. You can just change a clutch in like an afternoon. The fourth point that you realize coming from the car world is that cars are not fast. So I think there came a point where I came to that realization. It took a while for me to just let it sink in and realize that to realize that like my perception on speed is very different after riding a motorcycle for so many years. You don't sit in a car and worry about getting muscle cramps or spasms from the high acceleration, or the feeling of your arms being pulled out of your arm sockets when you get in a car. Although I must say that the performance of a car, even though it's less than a motorcycle, is more enjoyable because it's, when you're in a car, it's more comfortable. You're in the seat, you're getting pinned back into the seat. On a motorcycle, the performance is much more, but not as enjoyable due to the discomforts of hanging onto the bike and things like that. The fifth point that's different coming from the car world into motorcycles is the buying and selling process, or the resale process, especially for like second hand. Typically car buyers try to talk down the car. The other thing is motorcyclists are a lot more transparent about problems, whereas in the car world you try and hide the problems. Most of the time motorcyclists will go through every known problem that they know about, while going through the bike. And that is because any mechanical problem could jeopardize the life of the rider. So riders are in this like family and when I sell my bike, I go through all the whole thing. I tell them what they need, what I would do to it if I kept it. It's very rare when someone tries to hide a problem. Even if they're not fully transparent, they will usually hint at you, maybe after you've even bought it. They'll hint at you and they'll just say, hey, take a look at this, or I have an issue with this. So usually they'll let you know when something's wrong. Although some people, I have had an experience where one person was quite not forthcoming, maybe because he didn't know how bad the bike was. But it's quite rare. Again, you should always just do your own due diligence as well and check the bike out mechanically. And the other thing about selling is, for a bike, it's a win-win situation. If you sell your bike, you've got money to buy your next bike, and if you don't sell, well, you've still got your bike to ride. So these are the 5 points that are different when coming from the car world and getting into motorcycles. So that's all I've got. So we'll just end with a Bible verse, and that's from Isaiah chapter 48 verse 18, and it says, "If you had only paid attention to my commandments, then your well-being would be like a river, and your righteousness like the waves of the sea." And that's something that I believe firmly in, like obedience and submission to God, even if we think it might not be the best outcome, but trusting in God and knowing that He knows the best. What I've experienced, like when you trust in God, God opens a way that you probably wouldn't even imagine, and He can change your life in a way that you never would have thought possible. So I firmly believe in obeying, being in obedience to God, living according to God's will, not according to the wickedness and the sinfulness and the selfishness of this life. So anyway, that's all I've got. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like my content in general, please don't forget to subscribe, and make a comment. Tell me if you're, coming from the car world and you've learned something new about bikes, and take it easy and ride safe.